right. Well, thanks those of you here to hear the podcast and watch the set. My guest tonight is, of course, Neil Garguilo.
Feed me with your applause.
Yes. Neil is, I guess mainly you hail out of the IO West, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I also do Nerdist school over there.
But Dr. God.
Dr. God is my mainstay.
That's an IO West too.
Yeah, that's my mainstay.
And Dr. God recently wrapped, and it's killing now, Bloodsucking Bastards.
Yeah, Bloodsucking Bastards went to theaters, and it's on VOD right now. It's going to be on Blu-ray and DVD in early November.
Yeah, well, where was my part in that?
Listen, I was pushing for you all the way. It's Brian O'Connell who said, nope. He said, I don't think so. You know, I feel like I've gotten what I need out of that guy. We're done.
That son of a bitch. All right, so this is an improv podcast, primarily, I guess. It's also just a conversation. I'm just like, when did you start? I don't really know your history. I remember I taught you at the IO West.
Yeah. Here, actually. Also at IO for coaching sessions, but it was here. It was like your first or second class, I think.
When I got out here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the IO West used to be where we are currently, which is the Complex.
Yes. Yeah.
Theaters in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I remember, when I got out here, the IO West was still housed here.
Oh, I see. No, I had just moved when it had just moved over. So I started doing stand-up in New York when I was a teenager. I'm from New Jersey, and when I finally made the city my home, and I finally was not commuting anymore from New Jersey, I was going to school for theater at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute, and they had an improv class that was not comedic improv, but just kind of their process towards Strasbergian method. And I loved it so much, and then I saw, I grew up, while I was in high school, Upright Citizens Brigade was the show on television. That's what I knew that as. And I was like, oh, they have a school. I don't know what that is. I have absolutely never seen an improv show before in my life. I just knew it as whose line is it anyway. And I went and I took a class there. And I took my level 1. And I instantly was like, yeah, this is the thing I do now. I don't really do stand-up anymore. This is the thing that I completely do.
I never tried stand-up. That was never a thing that was something...
I would listen to Opie and Anthony every day, that radio show, and like they're just like
no idea.
Okay, so like they're really just the biggest dirtbags on earth, and Jim
Opie is Opie's from the Andy Griffith Show.
Right? No, right, exactly. Okay. Except for this is like the version of him that like would spit on a child in the middle of the street. Right. Just a bad man. And Jim Norton was on that show, stand-up comedian, and I would listen to that show every day, and I would go into the city, and I would watch, when I was a teenager, because it was like a 35-minute train, I'd go to this Comedy Cellar and watch everything, and I'd watch Jim Norton every week, and I thought that was like the coolest thing. Like, oh man, I'm watching this guy who's here every night, who I listen to on the radio every day. Oh, I want to try that. And I tried it, and the first time out, went great. I'm a teenager. I'm feeling great about myself. And then, like, the next 15 times were the worst experiences. Adults just, like, shunning you as you're standing in a room. You're in a room in Manhattan, and you're standing on a stage, and, like, I'm wearing a suit. But, like, I look like I'm at, like, my bar mitzvah.
Right.
I'm just like, hi. Yeah, well, I'm here now. And they just, you're just watching adults scoff at you because they paid money to see the show.
That's just, when I think, like, early shit that made me laugh had nothing to do with, because I became an improviser for probably strange reasons down the road. Because initially, like, I would think, if I look back at my life, that like when I was a kid, I remember I used to go to sleep listening to Richard Pryor shooting craps. Because one of my older brothers had the album, and I got a record player for like my 13th birthday.
Right.
And so I just put that on the record players, listened to it on loop, to the point where I could do the entire album.
Sure.
But it never occurred to me, like, this is something I should do. It was just like, no, that guy's just fucking funny.
Right. Well, I felt like I would listen to it enough, and I would do similar things. I would watch, in the early days of Comedy Central, I'd watch the special so much that I'd have it down. And then I'd listen to the Jerky Boys a lot. Yeah. That was a big part of my life. The Jerky Boys. I had a baseball card set that I wasn't allowed to have the CDs, so I way too complicated to hide something. I took all of the baseball cards out and would put my Jerky Boy CDs under them and then put the cards on top and then close the box and then put that box in the closet on the floor and a bunch of things on top of that. Like, whew, I got really dodged a bullet there. Mom could have found that at any moment when she was going through my baseball cards in the box in my closet.
And judged you like an adult shunning a child.
It was really just something I was familiar with at an early age, and I knew how to get back to it on stage. Thank you for that pity response, whatever that was.
So you took a class at UCB, because when I ran into you, you were already out here.
I was.
That must have been in New York.
Yeah, that was probably 13 years ago. And then I went through the full program in New York, and as soon as I finished, I moved out here. I've been here 10 years this week. It was actually 10 years for me. And where was the fucking applause? Where was...
So you and Brian were roughly the same time?
Yeah, I would say that I met Brian...
Because I came across you two differently.
Yes.
Like you didn't come through at the same time.
No, totally. Brian had already gone, and he had gone on his journey with you and done everything that he had done. They did one-on-ones for a while.
Right.
It wasn't just classes; it was one-on-ones, and it was performing together. I met Brian maybe.
But that was after we got to the IO West. I mean, the place on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, I met you at the place on
I
Hollywood Boulevard.
thought you said you took me here.
I did at Miles Stroth workshop.
Oh, okay.
Or you were doing...
Once I'd left the IO.
Yeah, you had left IO. Or I think you were there at the same time. You might have just been doing a class here.
Actually, what happened was I quit over there because I was sick of it.
Yeah.
For varying reasons. Then I started my own workshop here. Very small. Had a couple good groups. And then Sharon made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
I remember this all perfectly. Like
Right.
you had left, and then you had come back, and in that interim,
So I came back.
right? Mm-hmm.
That lasted for about 6 months.
Yep.
And then I was like, all right, now I'm really done. And I
Yeah.
came back over here and reopened.
Yeah, and I remember. Well, I was before you had reopened. It was me, and it was Mike Cohen was in that class. And it was a couple of other. It was like, geez, I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head. But it was a huge. I mean, there was a big gap in people's experience levels. There was someone it was their first improv class ever. And then maybe I was like 6 years into improvising, 6 years. And then Cohen was like 11 or 12 at that point. And you went around the room, and there were maybe 8 to 10 people in the class. And you could define within a couple of years what their experience level was. And I remember leaving that class going, what the fuck was that? How did that just happen? Like, yeah, you just, you probably started, you're early on, and, you're growing, and it's good, and you're good for where you are, and that's great. And, like, you guys, and you'd, like, lump me in with 2 other people who all had been between, like, 4 and 6 years of improv experience. Like, I feel like you've been doing it for, like, long enough, like, in that world of 5 years, and you guys are, and we're like, yep, no, that's it. And then you knew Cohen. Obviously, you were doing Armando with Cohen at the time, so you knew kind of where he was, but... walked out of that with those guys who were in my grouping, like, that's fucking crazy.
That's so funny because I don't think I could do that at all right now.
No, I know.
I think I must have been thinking about it like that to be able to do that.
Of course, in that moment, I'm sure you watched that class and you were like, that's a move that somebody of this experience level might make.
Right.
And there was such a huge difference in the room. I mean, it was like, I feel like there was consistently 4 to 5 years between the levels of people in the group.
Right.
So it was, you could...
But that shouldn't matter. I mean, because that shouldn't matter in a class.
Yeah.
I know some people are just like, there's the one guy in my class, or there's the great guy in my class.
Oh, I agree.
That's always going to be the case, but as far as, like, it's like, you want a variety of levels in your class if you're taking it.
I completely agree with you.
I think it's a great way to measure yourself.
And you also, your presentation was a positive one. It was because the person it was their first improv class ever was looking at Mike Cohen and like, why can't I do what he does? And the point of the whole thing was, hey, dude, don't relax. You've been doing this for like 3 classes, and he's been doing this consistently, like 200 shows a year for like 12 years. So like, there's just
you are doing the same thing. You're just at a different point in your process.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was the point of it. Yeah.
It's funny because I think about when I started, like, I have no idea. Because at some point, It's because like, hey, when's your 10-year anniversary or your 5-year anniversary or your 20-year anniversary? I remember Sharna in Chicago, who owns the IO in Chicago. She sort of screwed that up a couple times as far as how old the theater was. And so
she monetized it.
Well, she basically it's like, here's our 10-year, and then like, you know, 4 years later or something, she celebrates her 15th.
Oh, look, she's a brilliant businesswoman.
But the thing was, the papers keep track.
Yeah.
I mean, all you had to do was look it up, and like it was in print.
Sure.
And so as far as I think someone wrote something that said I started in 2007. So I'm like, fine. That's when I started.
That's when I started doing improv.
Oh, no. That's when I started this.
Oh, God, yeah.
This place. I'm like, no, I think I started before then, but you know what? Fuck it, it's in print.
No.
I'm good with 2007.
You have to go the other way with it, though. You have to start getting it out there that this is like celebrating its 100th year. This is the centennial, everyone please come. Oldest improv in Los Angeles. Suck it, groundlings.
Oh, we didn't get any questions this week. We were supposed to get questions off the internet or at the door, but fortunately, humans are very capable of asking questions.
They are.
So, does anyone in the audience have a question? Yes, right there.
One of my favorite things about Dr. God is not only your chemistry on stage, but off. Are you like legitimately great friends with those guys?
Oh, yeah.
What's one of those? Have you had like one of those weird friendship moments where you I don't know, serve each other pancakes or for breakfast or something?
Oh, there are so many weird friendship moments. But yeah, they are. They're my best friends. And that was something that, I think you go on, for me, you have a bunch of different groups that you perform with, but when a bunch of people commit to each other and have very similar interests and also like spend a lot of social time together, that chemistry kind of comes together. But yeah, I mean, we do a lot together. I mean, those are the people I see more than pretty much anybody. I've almost probably knocked Sean unconscious like 30 times in a drunken rage. And he's probably cooked me pancakes a similar amount of time the next morning. O'Connell and I have sat up till the sun rises in another city talking about improv and then hating the next day more than anything. And I work with them as well. Dave and I produce television together. Like we spend we're in an office together so many hours a week. So yeah, the chemistry and the friendship is very real, and that helps. I mean, that helps on stage. I know what someone's sensibilities are.
That's something I try and express to people, which is I think Brian has said it. Like you find that group of people that is your home.
Yeah.
Right. Like even more so than like I know Dr. God comes out of Iowa West, but Iowa West isn't so much your home as Dr. God is your home.
100%. 100%. I agree. I love not that I don't love the environment, but that is not a team that was generated by those in charge at Iowa West said, you guys have to do it. We found each other. We found each other at the bar and just through improv and knowing each other and immersing ourselves in a community. By throwing yourself into that community, you get to pick your friends and the people that you do that with. And you, by the way, were a part of Brian and I bonding because he would talk about you and your philosophies, and then I took your class, and Brian and I had been performing, and all of a sudden, like all of our the things we found to be the most important parts of improv lined up perfectly, and we started doing our two-man together, and then he started joining Dr. God afterwards, but that was a huge part of it as well. I credit you for being by far the best teacher I've ever had. I mean,
well, thank you.
Yeah, horrible man, but terrific. I had you and I had Ian Roberts at the same time, and I would say Ian was probably the second best, just because I understand the philosophy. But you guys have very similar points of view in certain ways, and you articulate it in a far superior way, and you've broken it down in a way that is so digestible. And I remember it was.
That's just because my career hasn't been interrupted.
A lot of time to think about it. You have a lot of improv time to think about it.
A lot of improv, and and teaching time over the years that
Yeah.
completely uninterrupted by success.
I remember one night though I was at I.O. and you were doing Armando, and I was in class with the two of you at that time, and I had gotten I had been doing worse work, and it was reflecting in my shows, and I was getting really frustrated because I was in my head, and I sat down with Sarah G, who was there at the time, and she was my coach, and I was like, Sarah, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I was half in the bag. I was 3/4 in the bag. I was deep into that bag. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. Like, I just feel like so stuck. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm so in my head. And she's like, well, what are you doing? Like, you're taking classes? I'm like, yeah, I'm in Miles' class. I'm like, I'm almost done with that, and I'm taking Ian at the same time. And she's like, yeah, like two of the most you're dissecting and breaking things down. As you're digesting this information, there's going to be a transition period. And she starts walking me off the ledge, and you come out from Armando, and I'm sitting there, and you go over, hello, Sarah. Hello, Neil. I go, don't even give me that. I was great, and you've made me terrible. And you start laughing because I'm very clearly drunk, and I'm having kind of a fun little moment, but I'm also dead serious. And you're like, well, yeah, I did notice that. Because I remember when you started in the first week, you were good, and you haven't been as good since then. Right? But then 6 months later, 6 months to a year later, when that stuff really sunk in and became habit, that changed my entire level of play. Changed everything.
I think that's always the case when you work on something to improve your overall game.
Yeah.
It's like it sort of busts because your game is like a solid thing.
Right.
And then you take it apart to fix something.
Uh-huh.
And now your game's all taken apart.
Yeah.
So until you get it straightened out again.
But he the straight, because he said it like this. Am I the absurd guy? But but all right, so is this an alternate reality? I don't know where the alternate reality is right now. Why am I so bad at this scene?
Because you're thinking.
Because I'm thinking, yeah, of course, because I'm...
It's funny because at that point I hadn't refined it down further.
Right.
Because it's funny because the teaching keeps changing from even back then to now. Because now what I would say is, I don't think I said this back then, which is you do all your thinking off stage.
Right.
Your training is all off stage.
Uh-huh.
The scene types, the positions, the character, and everything's off stage. But then when you walk on stage, you have to let it all go and play.
Right.
And whatever occurs to you, that's the only thing you do. Whatever occurs to you. And that's freedom.
Right.
'Cause otherwise, you go on stage and you're trying to think your way through a scene.
And you're doing a math. You're
torture.
you're doing math at that point. And it should just be, and in my opinion, it should just be subconscious math that you have ingrained in yourself that you know, and then that's taken care of itself, and then you play, like you're saying, and then you just play. But all of that stuff is just sitting back there, and it's helping it along. I mean, it's
What's that? Like if I ask you what's 12 times 12,
it's 144.
right? You don't need to actually go through the steps to get there anymore.
Right.
Because you memorized that when you
You really
were a
tried to
child.
fuck me on that one, because 12 times 12 is not an easy one, I'd like to say.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
How did the improv background of Dr. God inform your way into making Bloodsucking Bastards?
Well, let me answer that.
Miles.
The movie I was not in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, I say fuck Brian too. I don't like him either. I don't like
Guy's
him.
a prick, man.
I know, and I don't know.
I made him out of old mud.
You know what my favorite bit to do is, and I'm gonna get to that in 1 second. My favorite bit is he'll have his students and they'll be talking to him at the bar and so excited because he's there. And there's Brian. Oh, we're talking to Brian. And then he'll introduce me, or they'll be like, oh, you're in Dr. God with Brian. Like, yeah. Oh, he's my teacher. Oh, that's great. I remember when I first came across Brian, and he was a student of mine for a while, and I taught him for probably a year, and I was like, I think he's talented. I don't know if he's there yet. So then I started doing one-on-ones with him.
You're talking about, this is me.
I know, but I would say it as me.
Oh, all right.
And I just tell the whole narrative as if Brian was my protege, and then I do it and look, I mean, is he 5 years older than me? He is, but he is also willing to learn from someone that was younger, and I thought that took courage. I thought that was courage, and I just go on this narrative of, and then he has to correct it. No, it's Miles. That's Miles. There's the whole that's my favorite thing to do, just to make sure that I belittle Brian's accomplishments.
All right, now answer the fucking question.
The answer is yes. It did. No, yeah, Brian's a great director. He has a very clear vision of what he wants to do, and also it's a really tough balance because it's a low budget movie. It's moving fast. It's 18 days of shooting, so there's not a ton of time to do like Apatow takes of like, hey, let's get 25 takes of just the funniest shit that's ever happened. Like you're gonna get 3, maybe 4. So you've got to nail it. But Brian was very good about kind of loosening it up and letting you know, like, okay, we kind of have to get this out, but outside of that, you can play a little bit here. And it's written with that in mind. The other things that we have that we are hoping to do next year, one of the scripts came from just, 2 of us sitting down, improvising a ton of scenes, writing them down to, underneath the web of a story, and then refining it from there. So improv informs pretty much every aspect for me, whether it be writing that script or working in other shows or whatever it is.
All right.
That was a better answer than yes.
Yes,
right?
it was.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a useful answer.
Oh, good. Well.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Where did the boy band pool picture come from, and can I get it in poster form?
Okay, so if you
I didn't hear that. Where did the?
It's a boy band pool picture that we
All
have.
right. Oh, yes, the Dr. God poster.
Yes, you might remember it as what I call it, 25 pounds ago. That's when I look at the picture, I go, oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was when the number started with a 1. So we did that at someone's house. They're a photographer, and they're like, "Oh, we'd love to. We needed new pictures," and they said, "Yeah, we'd love to."
Was that McShane?
No, it wasn't. It was our friend.
I think everything
Robin.
rates McShane.
It's really
that must be McShane.
Yeah, I hate that his career has actually been it's great that he's at BuzzFeed. He's doing the things he wants to do, and I'm like, yeah, but you're fucking up improv posters everywhere, man. You should be making the. So we went up there, and originally the plan was to stand in a pool. We're all standing on a pool, and Sean is laying in the water with a cocktail up like this, and they were going to put cinder blocks in the pool, and we were going to stand on the cinder blocks so it could be practical, and they didn't have to Photoshop something. And I'm looking at this nightmare that's kind of being laid out, like, we're all going to hurt ourselves real bad right now, right? This is going to be terrible. And they're like, no, actually, let's just wet your feet and take the picture. So they laid it on there. And for poster form, yes, you can email me, and I bet that I could probably send something like that.
That is a great poster. Anything else? No? Oh, what? Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about improv?
That's
favorite thing about improv. That's what it's like. Well, what's your favorite thing about life?
What do you like about breathing? I would say that I moved here 10 years ago, and I moved with 3 people who weren't really involved with the path I was going on, and I didn't really know anybody. I moved here on a Tuesday. I started levels on a Wednesday at IO. I came here kind of blank slate, and within a month, I knew 100 people, and within a year, I had a family and a community of people that I could trust. I met in that level 6 class, and just in shows, people that will be the most important people in my life. So I would say my most important favorite thing about improv, there are a million work answers I can give you that, I'm happy to another time, but life, what it has provided for me as somebody who left 3,000 miles from where I'm from to pursue something different and give me some stability emotionally in this world.
It's funny. I would answer it very similar to a way I describe my wife. My wife is among so many wonderful things. She allows for me, right? Which is a beautiful trait to have in a partner. And improv allows for me. It allows me to explore. It allows me to make mistakes. It allows me to express myself. I think that's why I can't get rid of it. It's too much a part of me.
Like your wife.
Like my wife. Yeah. I can't get rid of my wife. No, I can't get rid of my wife or improv. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So let's do a set.
Cool.